Chapter 656, The Emergence of a Big Incident. Electric current? Tang Xiu stared blankly and then secretly shook his head. A high-voltage current may cause the death for an ordinary person, but for him, who was an immortal cultivator, it was not much of a threat at all. Who among powerful immortal cultivators were not struck by lightning when crossing a tribulation? Back when I was crossing the tribulation to become an immortal, those 99 tribulation thunderbolts were so gigantic and had such a powerful might. But what was the result? Didn't I endure it with all my will and even use the thunder power to quench my body, eventually turning my physique into an immortal physique? This memory crossed his mind and his expression suddenly moved. Quenching the body with thunder and lightning? There was no high-tech product in the immortal world, and one would only see lightning if there was a change in the natural environment that would cause lightning to strike from the sky, or by using lightning symbols and other props. But he was on Earth now. And all of those things could not be found here, and yet Earth had no shortage of electricity. What if he used enough electric current to quench his body? Wouldn't he be able to make his body stronger and more formidable? As Tang Xiu thought up to there, his eyes shined with excitement. He turned to Moe and said in a deep voice, "Professor Mo, I'll set up an internal fund after the research project is officially started. If any of the researchers and experts die in an accident while conducting a research on this product, his family will get 10 million yuan from the fund as compensation, whereas the injured will receive 5 million yuan at the highest according to how serious his injury is. Furthermore, if they also have family members at home, the magnificent Tang Corporation will be responsible to take care of the elderly and will also provide support for taking care of their children until they reach adulthood." Tang Xiu's commitment touched Moe's heart. Though he was nearly 60 years old, he still solemnly bowed to Tang Xiu with due care and respect. "Please don't act like this, Professor Mo." Tang Xiu quickly propped him up. "Mr. Ta. No, it's wrong. I should call you boss now." Moe shook his head. "I acted like that not only to represent myself but also all the colleagues in this institute. Thank you for solving all our extra concerns." "It's nothing. This is what I should do," replied Tang Xiu. After saying that, he immediately changed the topic and asked, "Professor Mo, what is the maximum power provided by the high-voltage electricity in this laboratory?" Though Moe did not understand why Tang Xiu suddenly asked such a question, he still honestly answered, 100 kW from the local power generator unit. There was originally a 120 kW generator unit from abroad, and Yuan Zhengxian once thought to help us import it, but our laboratory does not need such a high-power generator unit, so we told him not to buy it. "Is there a safety valve in the laboratory?" asked Tang Xiu once again. "We indeed have a safety valve," said Moe with a bitter smile. "Had that safety valve not has broken last time all of a sudden, my colleague would not have." Tang Xiu nodded to express his understanding. He would like to try it to himself as to how much power of electricity he could endure. But since he was not familiar with the scientists in this laboratory, and with the safety valve also not being there, it was not convenient for him to test it here. At noon, Tang Xiu left the research institute. And just as he walked out of the entrance of the electronics factory used to conceal the institute, he saw a black Audi parked outside with Yuan Zhengxian standing by its door while smoking. "So, how was your talk with them?" asked Yuan Zhengxian with a smile as he saw Tang Xiu driving his car out. "Well, like the adage that money can make the devils push the millstone for you, this sentence applies to everyone, too." Tang Xiu nodded. "Anyways, I must thank you for giving me your treasure, Uncle Yuan. After the product is researched and I make a lot of money, I'll invite you for a good drink then, Uncle Yuan." "They really accepted your whimsical idea?" asked Yuan Zhengxian, astounded. While making a gesture of counting money, Tang Xiu repeated his words again, "Didn't I just tell you, Uncle Yuan? Money can even make the devils push the millstones for you." Yuan Zhengxian understood in flash and let out an expression of being at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he said, all right, all right. Nobody is a saint, and no one can't live without money. Anyways, let's go. I've just booked a presidential suite in the Long's dining hall, let's have a few drinks there. Tang Xiu slightly smiled and suddenly realized that every time he returned to Star City, he had to go to the Long's dining hall and spend some money there. Before purchasing those 5 villas, he also invited Chu Yuan and Shui Yu to dine in the Long's dining hall as well. As he thought about them, Tang Xiu felt a bit helpless inside. Chu Yuan was a wise and resourceful guy who had a deep worldly knowledge, and he could even be considered an intelligent and wise man in the present age. Shui Yu, on the other hand, looked cold on the surface and yet was gentle and warm in the inside just like a jade, someone who had not been stained by worldly affairs. What made him quite helpless was that Chu Yuan was wary of him despite having a superhuman intelligence himself, whereas Shui Yu was still occupied with the thought of whether he had really seen her face. Those two are experts who would really be hard to deal with. Tang Xiu couldn't help but sigh inside. Seeing that Tang Xiu looked absent-minded, Yuan Jingxian said with a smile, "What are you dazing for? Don't tell me you don't want to accompany your uncle Yuan for a few drinks, eh?" Tang Xiu snapped back to his senses, as he shook his head and said, "No, I'm thinking about how come you know that I still have a few bottles of God's nectar in my car's trunk, Uncle Yuan." Yuan Jingxuan's brows pricked and immediately grinned, replying, "Tang Xiu, I've transferred a lot of scientists and researchers to you, so you must have the intention to thank me before, no? Besides, don't mention money at all as it's way too uncouthly. I feel that God's nectar would be great. How about giving this Uncle Yuan of yours 8 to 10 boxes?" A smile outlined in Tang Xiu's mouth. As it climbed up to his face, he said, "Well, you'll have 20 boxes of God's nectar delivered to your home tonight at the latest, Uncle Yuan. I promise you that you can call Kong Xia at any time when you finish drinking them up. She'll send some people to deliver it to you immediately." "Great." Yuan Jingxian was overjoyed and gave Tang Xiu a thumbs up. Immediately, the two men drove their cars to the Long's dining hall. Tang Xiu dialed Mo Ao's number, who followed him nearby on the way there, and told him to immediately buy a generator unit, and told him that the higher the power generated the better. Ring ring ring. Inside the presidential suite of the Long's dining hall, Tang Xiu, who was drinking and chatting with Yuan Jingxian, was suddenly disturbed by the rapid ringing call of his mobile phone. Tang Xiu gave an apologetic look to Yuan Jingxian as took out his mobile and saw the number displayed on the screen. He then made a gesture to Yuan Jingxian, got up and walked away while speaking, "Brother Xiao, is there something up for you to call me?" Xiao Mingzhen's rushed voice was heard from the mobile phone, "Tang Xiu, Miao Wenong just had an accident." With a change in expression, Tang Xiu quickly asked, "What happened to him?" "I don't know the specifics, but his secretary just called me for help." "They are in Kana's, Longquan Bay, in the western region," said Xiao Mingzhen. "Where are you now, Brother Xiao?" asked Tang Xiu with a serious tone. "I'm in Blue City," answered Xiao Mingzhen. "Brother Xiao, wait for me at the Blue City airport," said Tang Xiu. "I'll immediately catch up with you there with some of my men. Brother Miao is in danger, so we must rescue him." "That's right, contact them again and inquire about the situation." "Understood." Xiao Mingzhen replied and directly ended the call. Tang Xiu put away his mobile phone and quickly strode to Yuan Jingxuan's front and said, "Uncle Yuan, I'm afraid I can't continue to accompany you drinking. A friend of mine is in danger and I need to rush over to see him. I'll make it up to you later after I'm done dealing with this matter." Yuan Jingxian knew that Tang Xiu would not lie and speak such big words since his wife and son were once rescued by him as well. He was also perfectly aware that saving people was like fighting the fire, thus he immediately said, "Tang Xiu, is the place somewhere I can help you with?" "My friend got in an accident in Kana's," said Tang Xiu. "Sigh, then I can't help you." Yuan Jingxian sighed. He immediately shook his head and forced a smile, saying, "I don't have anything in the western region that." "Wait a sec. As he spoke half of the sentence, Yuan Jingxian suddenly grabbed his mobile phone and quickly searched a certain number, and then quickly dialed it. After talking a few words with the other party, he hung up and looked at Tang Xiu. Record this phone number. He's called Jia Weili, my former comrade. Though we haven't been in touch for several years, his number is still active. I just told him on the phone that you'll call him directly when you have arrived in Kaunas. He'll fetch you up at the airport. Thank you, Uncle Yuan. Tang Xiu quickly wrote the number, grabbed his coat and rushed outside. He even called Mo and told him to go back as he drove towards Blue City. On the way there, he made a few phone calls to his parents, Kong Xia, and the director of the Research Institute, MOE. Blue City Airport. After Tang Xiu arrived there with Mo and the others, he saw Xiaomingxin and his 6 bodyguards in the terminal. Have you contacted them again, Brother Xiao? Asked Tang Xiu quickly. I have contacted them, said Xiaomingxin with a forced smile. Brother Miao's secretary said that she isn't clear about the cause either. She and the other 2 bodyguards were arranged to stay in Kaunas Longquan Bay, while Brother Miao left with a group of people. But 2 days later, he ran away alone and said that his injury is very serious and said my name to his secretary before directly fainting. He has yet to wake up. Tang Xiu could tell the seriousness of the matter and quickly asked, have you bought the flight tickets for us? I booked 12-seat tickets for all of you guys after I received your text. Now is 2.5 hours from our flight departure time, said Xiaomingxin. 2.5 hours? It was too long. Tang Xiu then dialed his aunt, Tang Min's number and asked her to help arrange a passenger plane. In just 7+ minutes later, the general supervisor of Blue City Airport came to see him in person and told him and the others to wait for half an hour. After half an hour, an airliner without flight duty was taking them to the western region. Tang Xiu knew that the flight route rearrangement, all aspects of communication, refueling the plane, and the other series of procedures would take time, so he still tolerated with the waiting despite feeling worried and anxious. Miao Wendong was his friend as well as business partner, more so that he had once helped him, a favor he always remembered. 4:20 p.m. in the afternoon. The passenger plane finally took off from Blue City Airport and flew to the western region. After landing in a certain airport in the western region airport, the group changed planes midway and finally arrived at Kaunas Airport at 9:50 p.m. Chapter 657, The Schemed Miao Wendong. The group of 19 people stepped out of the exit of the Kaunas Airport. Tang Xiu then dialed the cell number Yuan Jingxian gave him, and after dialing it for the second time, a low and deep voice came out from the phone, Jia Weili speaking. May I know who I am speaking with? I'm Tang Xiu. Tang Xiu directly told his name. Mr. Tang, my former platoon leader has already told me about you on the phone. Now I'm waiting for you outside. Have you just come out of the airport with a group of nearly 20 people? I just saw you. As his voice faded away, a middle-aged man with a full beard appeared in front of Tang Xiu. There was a knife scar in his eyebrows, and he looked so burly and tall that he looked like a bear, and was followed by 2 young men behind him who were similarly robust and tough. Are you Mr. Tang Xiu? Tang Xiu ended the call, looked at Jia Weili and said, I am. Thank you for coming to pick us up so late. The friends of platoon leader are this Jia Weili's friends as well. Jia Weili shook his head and said with a smile. Anyways, welcome to Kaunas. We have 5 SUVs parked outside. Tang Xiu slightly nodded and introduced Xiaomingxin to Jia Weili, and then the group quickly left afterward. After coming outside, everyone got on the cars, as the drivers were then instructed to stay behind under Tang Xiu's request. Inside the SUV at the forefront, Tang Xiu and Jia Weili sat in the back seat while Mo drove the car and Xiaomingxin took the front seat. Jia Weili, there's an urgent matter, that's why we came here in a hurry, so we need to get to Longquan Bay fast. We're not familiar with the state of the roads here, so I will have to trouble you to give us directions. From Tang Xiu's identity and the rest, Jia Weili knew that these people were not ordinary, and therefore replied happily, "No problem. It will take about 3.5 hours to get to Longquan Bay from here. We'll arrive there by 12:30 in the middle of the night." Tang Xiu nodded without speaking. He could feel a valiant aura from Jia Weili. Even if such a tough aura was common from the people in this region, yet he was very familiar with the aura coming out from him. It was the kind of aura of death caused by doing a lot of killings. Therefore, he asked after hesitating a bit, "Jia Weili, I'm sure your identity is not ordinary since you can get 5 Wrangler SUVs in a short time like this. May I ask what business you do?" "Gold mine," answered Jia Weili with a smile. Xiaomingzhen, who was in the front seat, suddenly said, "There should be no gold mines here in Kana's region as far as I know. Other than stock breeding, the other developed industries are usually related to tourism. I once visited Kana's, and its geographical environment is very beautiful and boasts of many lakes. A good place for a relaxing holiday, I may say. Since you're the platoon leader's friends, then I won't conceal it from you," said Jia Weili with a smile. "Kana's is indeed a great place for a holiday. On the surface, though, there are no gold mines here, but there are several small and very secretive private mines which belong to us, the miners. We're keeping the news about in check, thus there have been no problems so far." Tang Xiu and Xiaomingzhen silently nodded and thought that the possibility was indeed very big. After all, there were a lot of things in the world that could not be exposed to the outside. Telling them about the existence of these gold mines to them, strangers, was not easy for Jia Weili as one of the owners. "Jia Weili, if you could heed to my advice, you may do any business and earn money, but it will be better to kill less, else you will have too much death qi around you, with which bad karma and many illnesses will follow. In the case bad luck were to emerge, there would also come some bloody retributions as well," said Tang Xiu slowly after pondering for a moment. Jia Weili was taken aback and immediately squinted his eyes to observe Tang Xiu's face with scrutiny. After a long while, only then did he slowly reply, "There's a feng shui master in the mainland who told me the same thing. Don't tell me young brother Tang Xiu is also good at it?" "I just know a bit," replied Tang Xiu with a casual tone. Jia Weili suddenly pointed to Mo, who was driving, and said, "This brother is not some ordinary layman either, right? I can feel a threatening atmosphere from him." Mo turned his head, smiled with his white teeth and said, "You have good eyes, indeed. The number of people I've killed exceeds 3 figures. Hiss. Jia Weili gasped for cold air, and the dread in his eyes turned a lot more intense. Tang Xiu knitted his brows and shouted in a deep voice, "Oh, shut up." Mo's neck shrunk and dared not to say anything more. Turning to look at Jia Weili again, Tang Xiu said, "Don't listen to him. He likes to brag. In fact, don't look at his stocky and sturdy figure, he doesn't even dare to kill a chicken." Jia Weili was not a fool, how could he not tell that Tang Xiu was trying to conceal it from his expression? Though he was curious about the identity of Tang Xiu and the rest, he did not intend to inquire more. His former platoon leader was his savior who once saved his life, and the camaraderie between them was very deep, so he put down his own business at hand and personally came to fetch Tang Xiu and them. At Longquan Bay. The name was very beautiful, but the place was fraught with dangers. There were many lakes here, and also many swamps. If a non-native person from another region who did not know the Longquan Bay area was to rashly wander around the place to enjoy the beautiful scenery, they may meet their demise here. Therefore, even though tourism had been developed in Kana's, this place was still undeveloped and only a few people would come here. Longquan Village. There were only a handful of hamlets around the Longquan Bay, and the number of inhabitants in this village was less than 100 households, where Miao Wentang's secretary and his 2 bodyguards were guarding him. At 12:30 in the middle of the night, 5 SUVs arrived at Longquan Village and stopped outside the stockade village. Just as Tang Xiu's men got off the car, one of Miao Wentang's bodyguards came out from the dark and hidden bushes. "Mr. Xiao." That bodyguard knew Xiaomingzhen and immediately greeted him. Xiaomingzhen nodded at him and asked, "Where is Miao Wentong?" The bodyguard glanced at Tang Xiu and the rest before pointing to the stockade village and saying, "We have arranged for boss to stay here. I'll lead you to him." A few minutes later, the group entered the stockade village and came to the courtyard of the farmhouse where Miao Wentong was staying. As Xiaomingzhen strode into the front gate in a hurry, Tang Xiu stopped his pace, taking out a pack of cigarettes from his pocket and handing one cigarette to Jia Weili. As an astute person, Jia Weili understood Tang Xiu's attitude and immediately said, "I will not follow you inside, Mr. Tang. Just call me if you have something you need my help with." "Thank you for escorting us here, Jia Weili. The matter my friend has encountered here is very troublesome and may implicate you if you are to stay here. I know that you have a very good relationship with Uncle Yuan, but we will take care of these matters ourselves. If it's possible, I have to trouble you to leave 4 cars behind to us, too." After thinking for a moment, Jia Weili nodded and said, "All right. Then we'll go back first." As Jia Weili left with his 2 men, Tang Xiu quickly went inside. When he saw Miao Wentong lying in the bed, looking pale and his lips turned purple, he immediately reached out to grab his wrist. "He's poisoned, a very terrifying poison." After the examination, Tang Xiu found that Miao Wentong was not only poisoned but also got bruises, scars, some places wounded by a sword, and there were also some more that seemed to be scratched by a beast's claws. Immediately, Tang Xiu took out the silver needle box and applied acupuncture treatment on him. At the same time, he injected his primal chaos force to help him force out the poison. The poison was unfortunately too potent, so it took Tang Xiu a few hours before less than a half of the poison was discharged out of his body. Cough. Cough. Miao Wentong, who was previously unconscious, finally sobered up and coughed up blood. His eyes slowly opened and then became more focused. He struggled to sit after his vision fell on Xiaomingzhen and Tang Xiu, but the pain brought by his wounds and the weakness of his body didn't let him do so. Tang Xiu held him down and said, "Brother Miao, your injury is very serious, and the poison in your body is very damaging to your internal organs. Fortunately, your cultivation is quite deep so the poison is suppressed for the time being. But I'm afraid you won't be able to hold on for too long if you don't get a timely treatment." "Yeah, Brother Tang has just helped you force out the poison, but it was still only a small amount of it. The rest will need to rely on yourself," echoed Xiaomingzhen hurriedly. "Thank you, brothers." Miao Wentong squeezed out a smile, yet it looked very ugly. His lips wriggled and his voice was very small. "Don't look at us like we are some kind of strangers and just tell us." Tang Xiu shook his head. "Brother Miao, what exactly happened to you? Who injured you in this town and caused you to be in such a state?" There was a tinge of fear inside Miao Wentong's eyes as he replied with a bitter expression, "It's the Western nefarious Sangha and his bloodthirsty chiropterans. You must be very careful, Western nefarious Sangha has a dreadful sorcery, and those 2 bloodthirsty chiropterans he raised are extremely difficult to deal with. Also, be careful of that golden armored zombie." Tang Xiu and Xiaomingzhen exchanged bewildered looks. They did not know what monster Miao Wentong was talking about. "I don't know much about them either, actually. I really got schemed this time. I brought a group of my men to come over and thought that I could make a big deal, and ended up encountering this Western nefarious Sangha and golden armored zombie. This Western nefarious Sangha is the name that bald monk calls himself, and that golden armored zombie is like an ancient corpse possessing sentience, like a zombie." Miao Wentong, who was now more relaxed, explained while using his true essence to suppress the poison in his body. "Who has schemed against you and exactly what was the business deal?" asked Tang Xiu. "It was Grandma Shipo of the Miao tribe. She told me that there was a night orchid and an aerolite essence here. She told me that as long as I brought my sky sandstone then I could trade with the other party with these 2 things I need." Tang Xiu's expression changed and said in a deep tone, "I warned you that you must not disclose anything about the sky sandstone, didn't I?" I made a pendant made of this sky sandstone, which Grandma Sheepo of the Meow tribe took notice of, said Meow Wentong with an astringent expression. In fact, what she was talking about was exactly this pendant. People who can recognize the sky sandstone are never ordinary, said Tang Xiu seriously. Once they have identified it, they will surely try to rob it with any means necessary. Brother Meow, you were too careless. It's too late for me to regret it now, isn't it? Said Meow Wentong. Everyone I brought with me were killed, and the sky sandstone pendant was also robbed, while I myself am. Sigh. Tang Xiu sighed and said with an easy expression, Brother Meow, what's important for you now is to heal yourself and discharge the poison. I will help you with that, and when your injury is healed, we'll go to confront this Western nefarious Sangha together. Chapter 658, There must be something strange about things going wrong. After spending 3 days to heal himself, Meow Wentong's injuries were almost cured and the poison in his body was fully discharged. With the help of Tang Xiu and consuming 2 healing medicinal pills and half a bottle of body refining liquid, he turned this misfortune into a blessing since his physical body became more formidable and his cultivation also faintly improved. As grateful Meow Wentong right now, it was Xiao Mingjin who was envious of him. Why wasn't it me who got injured? While watching Meow Wentong performed a set of fists fast, perfect, and smoothly, Xiao Mingjin sighed with a sour tone. At this moment, Tang Xiu was simply like a treasure vault in his eyes, a treasury vault with an endless number of treasures. He felt envious of Qin Zhizhong all of a sudden and even genuinely admired the man inwardly. With such a powerful master like Tang Xiu, wasn't he highly likely to obtain many benefits, too? Meow Wentong wiped the sweat off of his face and grinned, Brother Xiao, do you think it feels good to get injured so badly? I was just a shy close to death, even if it did turn into a blessing in disguise right now. I never want to go through this a second time. Wahaha. Xiao Mingjin mockingly laughed at him and his eyes then fell on Tang Xiu, who came out of the house. Donning sportswear, Tang Xiu walked to the courtyard and said, It's about time, Brother Meow. Let's go to the place where you were attacked after we have a breakfast. Though we're not sure whether this Western nefarious Sangha and golden armored zombie are still there, we still must look for them. Redress not the enmity and you are a man no longer, so finding them is a must to let them pay the necessary price. Meow Wentong shuddered inside as a tinge of dread flashed inside his eyes, and he replied with a helpless expression, Brother Tang, I know that you've become very strong now, but the Western nefarious Sangha is really too queer. He has all sort of despicable and shameless means that he puts out one after another endlessly, and his cultivation is also stronger than mine. And that golden armored zombie, he did not even act, but I still got a chill down my spine by only his aura. How about waiting for some more time? It's never too late for a man to take his revenge 10 years later, so we'll come back to find them again when we become stronger. How about it? Tang Xiu shot a deep gaze at Meow Wentong's eyes and realized that the man really did not want to face Western nefarious Sangha and golden, armored zombie. Meow Wentong had succumbed to his fear. Tang Xiu's vision then landed on Xiao Mingjin and also found that the man nodded with a cautious expression. Eventually, he had to force a smile and said, All right, I'll follow the major vote since you two don't want to face them. Anyways, let's just have breakfast and leave. All right. The 2 men nodded and did not speak more. Longquan Bay, at one lakeshore with gleaming water under the sunlight, 2 waterfowls flapped their wings and continually streaked toward the sky, hitting the horizon with all their momentum. Their reddish-sharp eyes were 2 times bigger than that of ordinary waterfowls, with sharp talons that were slender and yet very sharp. Whoosh! A raging wind swept through as the 2 waterfowls streaked upward for tens of meters, dripping a few drops of blood, and its large feathers fell down before its trace was gone completely. You court your death, zombie. A roar of rage came from a bald-headed monk sitting cross-legged on the shore. There were 9 incense scars on top of his head, donned in a bright kasaya, big round earrings decorated his ears, and a magical wand laid on his knees. A dreadful aura erupted from him and blotted out the sky toward the feathers. Amid a terrifying laughter, a humanoid monster appeared out of thin air donning a golden armor attire with a black cloth on his face that only exposed his eyes. Don't be so stingy, Western Nefarious Sangha. Those birds are nothing but puppets. You can still control some more casually, right? Anyways, I'm very hungry, I'm starving. Maybe I can eat to the full if you give me that sky sandstone. We are done with our trade. Western Nefarious Sangha coldly snorted. This sky sandstone is mine. Scram and leave me alone if you know what's good for you, else don't blame for being rude. Let's have a gamble. Isn't gambling what you like the most? Golden Armored Zombie maniacally laughed. How about I tell you where that meow guy is, and you give me this sky sandstone? Western Nefarious Sangha's face moved and looked at Golden Armored Zombie. Then he immediately sneered and shook his head. I've seen tons of clever deceptions, but don't think to play me with this petty trick. However, if you lead me to that meow guy and I get more sky sandstones from, I may share it with you equally. The Golden Armored Zombie cried out in a strange voice and flew away, but a tiny voice was transmitted to Western Nefarious Sangha's ears, Longquan Village. Longquan Village. The 10 SUVs started, but the people who boarded each car were few in number. Miao Wentong originally brought along more than 20 men with him, many of whom were experts he had fostered, but now there were only 2 bodyguards and 1 secretary left. Let's go. Let's leave this damned place, spoke Miao Wentong with a deep sigh. He sat next to Tang Xiu and glanced at Xiao Mingjin on the front seat. Tang Xiu's brows pricked and said faintly, I'm afraid it won't be easy for us to leave now. What do you mean? Asked Miao Wentong with a confused and blank expression. There are things that we won't be able to hide in this world from, said Tang Xiu faintly. We may be unwilling to find these people, and yet they actually came looking for us. Seems like entering the game where they die or we must perish is inevitable. After saying that, Tang Xiu pushed open the door and got off. As he walked forward for 5+ steps, his eyes then fell on the old man who waltzed through the entrance of Longquan Village. It's him. Miao Wentong's expression changed greatly, and there was fear deep inside his heart as though he was currently facing an enemy who was preying on him. Amit Ba, Benefactor Miao is really skillful. You've been poisoned by this penniless monk's 7 flowers 7 insects poison, and yet the poison was unable to kill you. Moreover, you turn out to have invited so many helpers as well, eh? Western Nefarious Sangha spoke loudly with a contemptuous look. Stepping forward, Miao Wentong stood side by side with Tang Xiu and glared at him. You worked together with Grandma Shipo to trap me. I intended to let this go and was about to leave this place back to the mainland. Little did I think that you would be so aggressive and overbearing to even chase me here. Western Nefarious Sangha, do you really want to bully me so much? Amit Ba. Western Nefarious Evil nodded and smilingly said, Benefactor Miao is indeed a good target to be bullied. Miao Wentong was incensed and knew that today's matter would not end in an amicable way. He also did not want to endure it anymore, for he had a limit to the degree of anger he could restrain. More so that he was forced to this point, and if worse came to worst, he would fight till they perished together. The instant he drew his sword, he already bolted towards the Western Nefarious Sangha. Golden Armored Zombie, I know what you have in mind, bastard. You must have a wishful thinking to earn a profit as the third party from this fight between me and them. This brat Miao is very easy to deal with, but there are still some brats who are not easy to handle here. If you don't show up, then I'll leave at once. Keen and alert as he was, Western Nefarious Sangha could not tell how strong Tang Xiu was, making him secretly cautious inside. But the aura emitted by Xiao Mingjin was not weaker than Miao Wentong's, and the most notable thing was that this group of people felt very particular, as he could sense that half of them should be cultivators, more so that they seemed to be the kind of ruthless and fierce bunch. What skill? You're really too difficult to plot against. Golden Armored Zombie came with his howl. When he saw Miao Wentong and Western Nefarious Sangha clashing, he immediately stood at the side and shook his head after sighing. Tang Xiu glanced at Xiaomingzhen and said, "Go help brother Miao. Leave this corpse to me." Xiaomingzhen complied and flashed towards Western Nefarious Sangha. Obviously, Golden Armored Zombie could hear Tang Xiu's words as his eyes finally fell on him. He carefully scrutinized Tang Xiu, let out a strange laughter and said, "What a spirited brat. But young as you are, even if you've been cultivating since you were still in your mother's womb, how high would you've gone, to begin with? Come, let this majesty give you 300 moves." Tang Xiu stuffed his hand into his pocket and took out a porcelain bottle. He shook it toward Golden Armored Zombie and smilingly said with a ruminating look, "Hey, bogeyman, do you believe that I won't be able to take care of you?" Golden Armored Zombie waved his hand as a dazzling golden spear instantly shot towards Tang Xiu, and his figure followed the instant after, appearing in front of Tang Xiu in the blink of an eye. The golden spear only pierced a shadow, but Golden Armored Zombie's fist struck Tang Xiu's left shoulder. His was extremely fast, and even if Tang Xiu avoided it to the best he could, his speed was slightly slower than his. However, at this moment, Tang Xiu flicked his finger and opened the porcelain bottle's lid as the liquid inside it brought about a corrosive stench, and sprinkled on Golden Armored Zombie's body. Zzz. The pungent stench of a corpse being corroded quickly spread out, and amidst the white smoke coming out from Golden Armored Zombie, and despite him having an iron skeleton and copper skin body, he still let out a shrill scream. In just a short 100th second, he had already escaped and streaked to the sky. Western Nefarious Sangha, who was facing Miao Wentong's and Xiaomingzhen's joint attacks, suddenly heard Golden Armored Zombie's miserable howl and immediately looked toward the other side. How is it possible? What kind of method that brat used to make that Golden Armored Zombie suffer such a great loss? Western Nefarious Sangha was secretly shocked. I thought I would waste a lot of energy and effort to deal with you. Never thought that my conjecture was correct, that you're really afraid of the body dissolving liquid. Tang Xiu loudly laughed. As his voice faded away, he had already dashed towards Golden Armored Zombie. He wanted to kill him to seize his treasures, something he had done so many times before. And yet, he was really looking forward to this time. He found that Golden Armored Zombie had an aerolite essence hung on his waist. Aerolite essence. It was a precious or comparable to the sky sandstone that had an enormous effect to improve the immortal sword's intrinsic quality. Tang Xiu decided that he must obtain this aerolite essence and fuse it into his Bloodguzzler dagger so that it would be greatly enhanced. Moreover, it was also highly likely that it could turn into a spiritual device in a very short time. Oh, you must ensure their safety. I'll return immediately after I'm done finishing Golden Armored Zombie. Tang Xiu's voice sounded as his body was about to disappear in the sky. A cold expression painted Moao's face. Though he and the 10 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall were still weak, he was ready to give his all even if he had to sacrifice everything to execute this order. Release your swords. Moao shouted loudly, as a long sword then appeared in his hand, followed by similar long swords also appeared in the other 10 experts' hands. Chapter 659, Sword Formation's Might. The latest addition to the Everlasting Feast Hall's project on fostering new powerhouses consisted of 4 aspects: magical arts, body enhancement, imperial swords, and a sword formation array. Since Gu Yan had woken up from her comatose state, though the number of treasures in her interspatial ring was not much and neither did she have flying swords, she still took her time to refine dozens of flying swords herself in order to foster powerhouses belonging to the Everlasting Feast Hall. The dozens of flying words were then given to dozens of the most qualified experts among them. As for the sword formation array, it was taught by Ji Qimei, who developed 4 types of joint sword formation arrays: the duo sword formation, the 4 phenomena sword formation, the 8 apparatus sword formation, and the infinite heavenly revolution sword formation. Because Tang Xiu needed a group of experts to accompany him, Gu Yan personally ordered that all the 10 experts who practiced the infinite heavenly revolution sword formation be sent over. The moment Western Nefarious Sangha saw that Moao's group of 11 had released their flying swords, his eyes instantly lit up. However, just as he pushed Miao Wendong and Xiaomingzhen back, not only did he not take the initiative to launch an attack, he also did not rush to attack Moao's group, but poured a pile of ashes and then turned and flew to the distance. He's running away. Miao Wendong and Xiaomingzhen exchanged dismayed looks. When they turned around and saw the flying swords held by Moao's group of 11, they slightly furrowed their brows because they were sure that they were not carrying long swords before. Could it be that they possessed the so-called legendary interspatial ring? 11 flying swords, it was something that they dare not imagine at all. After all, they were perfectly aware of the situation revolving around the cultivator community in these modern times. Not only were they down and out and waning, but cultivators were also few in number. Who would be able to give 11 flying swords to his men at the same time? Mr. Miao, shall we pursue him or not? Moa moved toward the two men and asked. Miao Wendong hesitated for a moment before shaking his head and saying, "Let it be. Western Nefarious Sangha is too strong and has countless means he has yet to use. Those two bloodthirsty chiropterans have yet to appear either. I'm afraid we are still not his match even if I join hands with Brother Shao. Let us find Tang Xiu. That golden armored zombie has a dreadful aura and I'm afraid that Tang Xiu won't be a match for him." A few minutes later, Western Nefarious Sangha had run away for dozens of miles. After discovering that no one was pursuing him, he rushed to a certain spot in the forested mountain. His figure then stopped under a towering tree, his old face painted with a cloudy and uncertain expression. He was not afraid of Miao Wendong since Grandma Shipo had told him everything about him already. He also had no fear towards the middle-aged man joining Miao Wendong to fight him because that man's strength was pretty much the same as Miao Wendong's. He would definitely be able to kill them if he used his trump cards. However, the appearance of those 11 flying swords was like a thunderclap that blasted inside his heart, even shocked him to the point of dread. It was 11 flying swords. And yet, those 11 cultivators who used them had just barely broken through to the foundation establishment stage. What this implied? This meant that the young man who just pursued Golden Armored Zombie was definitely someone terrifying. He probably had a very terrifying influence behind him. The unknown was the most frightening. He thought that he already knew about all the cultivator circles, and yet, he suddenly discovered that there was an influence that had many flying swords, a fact that raised fear inside him. He was born cunning in nature, low-key and cautious, and always scheming whenever he was tempted to go into action. Of course, it was also suitable to describe him as being timid and coward. These people, what are their origins? In his mind, Tang Xiu's face appeared once again. Those 11 cultivators who released flying swords were all obeying his orders, meaning that his status was definitely very high. Investigating the details of these people is a must. Knowing oneself and the others, only then will I be able to measure the degree of danger before going into action. I must get those flying swords, but I need to find the right time. Killing and robbing treasures must be wonderfully done in a clean manner so as to not leave trouble for the future. I just hope Golden Armored Zombie can escape. Western Nefarious Sangha grabbed a string of Buddhist beads, pinched them with his thumbs and chanting a prayer in silence. Golden Armored Zombie was a powerful figure who came out from an ancient tomb, in a demonic yin land of a certain place in the western region. Although they had been fighting for nearly 100 years, they had always joined hands whenever they had to confront their enemies. Many times they had collaborated to fight their enemies, thus creating a particular attachment to one another. High up in the air, above a certain place of Longquan Bay where most of the area was wetlands, Tang Xiu held the Bloodguzzler dagger backhandedly. Each time he brandished it, a blade light was released and hit Golden Armored Zombie's body hard. Yet even if his body was hacked by the blade light, it was only able to leave a white mark and sparks that flew to all directions. Only the parts of golden armored zombie's body that were sprinkled by the body dissolving liquid did the blade light inflict some damage. You can never escape, golden armored zombie. Your only choice is to be obedient and let yourself be caught without putting up a fight. Tang Xiu was in a high spirit to fight, whereas golden armored zombie was constantly dodging and avoiding his slashes. Golden armored zombie's eyes were bloodshot and full of hatred as he tried to avoid with difficulty. He occasionally seized the opportunity to counterattack once or twice. His speed was fast, yet Tang Xiu was not much slower than him either. The most notable thing of all was that Tang Xiu's combat experience was very rich, and he was as though able to predict the trajectory of each of his attacks in advance. "Who the hell are you?" roared golden armored zombie furiously. "There's no need for you to care who I am." Tang Xiu sneered. "What I can tell you is that, as long as you choose to surrender, not only will I not kill you, I'll also bestow you a huge opportunity. However, I want your aerolite essence." Golden armored zombie felt so chagrined. His speed was a bit faster than Tang Xiu's, yet what depressed him the most was that his sharp claws that swept Tang Xiu's body did not even leave any trace of injury on him. He even suspected that Tang Xiu was not really human. Why was his body so strong to such a frightening state otherwise? Whoosh. 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 A group of shadows came dashing like a whooshing gale. Golden armored zombie felt a bad premonition after seeing those shadows. According to reason, even if Western nefarious Sangha was not able to kill all those people, he would not be killed by them either, would he? But still, how come he had yet to catch up with him until now? Blood Ocean. Golden armored zombie finally released his trump card. His sharp claws tore open his forehead and a dazzling drop of golden blood instantly shot out. In just 1+ seconds, the golden blood burst out and formed a billowing blood-red tide that surged forward. Tang Xiu could keenly feel the terrifying energy contained in the blood tide, yet he did not look panicked in the face of death and sneered instead, "Golden armored zombie, you chose not to accept defeat until the end, eh? Fine. Watch how I break you killing move. Imperial Thunder Blast." He pointed the blood guzzler dagger straight at the sky, and instantly, a terrifying aura came down along with the sound of a Dao mantra spell being chanted. Just as golden armored zombie's expression changed greatly, a lightning blitzed down into the blood tide. At the same time, Tang Xiu waved his arm to conjure his true fire art, and layers of flames of tens of meters high true fire blazed out of thin air and shrouded the entirety of the blood tide. Lightning and true fire spells? The complexion of golden armor zombie changed so drastically that he looked tragic. Fear arose inside his heart in an instant. He was an ancient corpse, and what he feared the most was exactly lightning and true fire. What he was great at was not his magical power but his physical strength, to begin with. "I'll give it to you. I'll give the aerolite essence to you." Tang Xiu's expression was joyful as he instantly caught the aerolite essence thrown by golden armored zombie, and straightly stored it into his interspatial ring after checking it. As he looked at the blood tide, the tide rolled back and contracted before turning into a golden liquid in the blink of an eye, and shooting into golden armored zombie's forehead. Only then did Tang Xiu retract his technique. "You will be thankful for this decision." After Tang Xiu snorted coldly, he quickly took out a piece of jade and made it into a jade slip. Then, he recorded a type of cultivation technique into it, after which his finger pointed and released it as it turned into a stream of light that went toward golden armored zombie. This is the primary cultivation technique of the corpse smelting lineage. Take this and cultivate it well, and then you'll be able to reach the nascent corpse stage. If you want the following content of this cultivation technique, you can go to Shanghai to look for me. The primary cultivation technique of the corpse smelting lineage that could reach the nascent corpse stage? Golden armored zombie released his spiritual sense into the jade slip in his hand. After reading the entire chapter of cultivation technique inside it, his stocky figure trembled violently and his heart was shaken out of ecstasy. He was an ancient zombie with sentience and intelligence and had been fumbling about for 200 plus years. It was only decades ago that he finally found himself a cultivation technique, which drove him to go all out to absorb nefarious energy and seek an ancient tomb to absorb corpse energy until he possessed the strength he currently had. This cultivation technique was simply tailored for himself. He could not imagine how formidable his strength would be in the future if he was to cultivate according to this cultivation technique. Thank you very much, Immortal Master. Golden Armored Zombie knelt on one knee and spoke to Tang Xiu with a grateful expression. I'm giving you this cultivation technique in exchange for the aerolite essence you gave me, said Tang Xiu indifferently. But remember, regardless of how powerful you are in the future, you must never bring calamity to ordinary humans. Neither are you allowed to do evil things, else I'll send someone to exterminate you even if your cultivation has reached the peak of nascent soul stage. It will never happen, said Golden Armored Zombie hurriedly. Tang Xiu. Brother Tang. Miao Wentong and Xiaomingzhen flew over and shouted in a deep voice as they looked at Golden Armored Zombie with hostility. Tang Xiu lightly smiled to them and said, "What about Western nefarious Sangha?" "He ran away," said Xiaomingzhen with a regretful expression. "I don't know what was the reason, but after Mo Ao and the rest used the sword formation array, he just glanced at them and immediately fled." Tang Xiu's expression turned fierce and quickly looked at Mo Ao and the rest. His face changed greatly when he saw the flying swords in their hands. He took a deep breath and immediately looked at Golden Armored Zombie, and then spoke in a heavy tone. "I want to know the identity and background of this Western nefarious Sangha, along with all the methods he possesses. Also, I must know where his nest is." Upon hearing the question, Golden Armored Zombie immediately poured out everything he knew about Western nefarious Sangha and finally said, "The distance from here to Longquan Swamp is only several tens of kilometers, and his immortal abode is there." Golden Armored Zombie, I want Western nefarious Sangha's life. What do you think about this? Asked Tang Xiu coldly. Hesitating for a while, Golden Armored Zombie then glanced at the jade slip in his hand before looking at Tang Xiu and finally saying, "I'll turn a blind eye and a deaf ear. This is all I can do." Chapter 660, Reinforcement. Miao Wentong and Xiaomingzhen looked at each other in dismay. Never once had they ever thought that Tang Xiu could have such a queer cultivation technique. This Golden Armored Zombie's current strength was already very terrifying. If he was to practice that cultivation technique, how powerful would he be in the future? Wasn't this akin to raising a tiger only to court a disaster upon yourself in the future? Though they were very concerned about it inwardly, however, they did not have any courage to object at all. They could only exchange looks with forced, bitter smiles in silence. When they landed on the ground, Tang Xiu straightly said, "Golden Armored Zombie, you also know that the Western nefarious Sangha is very strong, thus I request that you to stay with us for the time being so that you can see him be killed by our hands." This, all right. Golden Armored Zombie hesitated for a moment before complying. Though he had gained sentience and wisdom many years ago, his ability in scheming and trickery was always inferior to the humans. He could not see through Tang Xiu's true intentions at all. Tang Xiu requested him to stay with them, on the one hand, was because he was afraid that he would secretly notify Western nefarious Sangha that he planned to kill him. On the other hand, he wanted to display a show of force, to make the Golden Armored Zombie see how much power he had. On the way back to Longquan village, Tang Xiu phoned Gu Xiaoxue and told her that he wanted Light and Dark to come over as fast as possible. Tang Xiu didn't plan to bring Miao Wentong and Xiaomingzhen to kill the Western nefarious Sangha, because he could judge from their words and behavior that they had yet to recognize that the swords in the hands of Mo Ao's group were flying swords. He had inquired Mo Ao about this matter in secret and learned that when Mo Ao and the rest released their flying swords, Miao Wentong and Xiaomingzhen were in an intense combat with Western nefarious Sangha, and the subordinates of the two men should have not noticed their actions when they released their flying swords. In the courtyard, Tang Xiu could see Miao Wentong's and Xiaomingzhen's faces, wanting to speak but hesitating. After pondering about it, He could understand what they had in mind and slightly smiled. Two brothers. I know what's making you concerned and worried. Western Nefarious Sangha is someone who stops nothing in doing all sorts of evil, and he has probably been a disaster for the ordinary people as well. Even if there was no incident this time, I would still try to exterminate him. However, our present strength is not enough, and our chance of killing him is very slim even if we are to join forces. Then, what's your plan? Asked Miao Wentong quickly. I'm looking for people to help us, answered Tang Xiu. Who? Asked Miao Wentong, looking confused. I know that you two are curious brothers. Tang Xiu smiled. But it's not yet the time to tell you. We must kill Western Nefarious Sangha, but you two cannot participate in this. The people I invited have a very strange temper, they don't want to communicate with any strangers. Just wait for a couple of days, and then I promise to show you the result a few days later. Upon hearing this, Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjin had no choice but to suppress their curiosity and no longer asked about this matter. Tang Xiu was very thorough and methodical in doing things, something they were perfectly aware of, thus it made them feel reassured. Although they aware that Tang Xiu said that Western Nefarious Sangha was someone who had done all sorts of evil things, as a kind of excuse, yet they did not say much about it. 2 days later, Tang Xiu left Longquan village with Golden Armored Zombie. Just as he drove the car out of the village, two figures silently appeared. Brother Miao, it seems like what we know about Brother Tang is still too little, sighed Xiao Mingjin with a forced smile. I already thought that he was very mysterious back when we first met him in the Everlasting Feast Hall. Miao Wentong nodded. Though I've always been wanting to unveil all his secrets, he kinda gives me a feeling that I won't be able to do so. Needless to say about that though, speaking about his strength, isn't now only more than half a year from then? Yet his cultivation progressed so rapidly that he now has unexpectedly surpassed us. This is simply unfathomable. Xiao Mingjin nodded and said, Yeah. The methods he showcased when he combated Golden Armored Zombie, especially those two spells, it's like the forbidden art we used. No, it's wrong. We're probably unable to unleash such a might even if we use our forbidden arts. Miao Wentong was silent for a while. He then patted Xiao Mingjin's shoulder and firmly said, Everyone has secrets, and since Tang Xiu is unwilling to tell, let us not inquire deeper into it. Shortly put, we must get closer to him in the future, then I'm sure we can get many benefits from him too. Copy that. Xiao Mingjin firmly nodded. About 12 kilometers from Longquan village, an off-road car was parked on a dirt road. Mo Au stayed on the driver's seat and did not get off the car, whereas Light and Dark were standing in front. Grand Master. Light and Dark cupped their fists and reverentially called out. Tang Xiu nodded with a happy expression and glanced at Golden Armored Zombie nearby, whose stance was on guard against enemies, and faintly said, They are my juniors, so you don't have to show such an appearance. Though you have been cultivating the cultivation technique from corpse smelting lineage over these 2 days, and the small result you obtained faintly improved your strength, these two can easily kill you if they join forces. Golden Armored Zombie nodded with a cautious expression and said, They are indeed very strong. I can feel a terrifying force hidden inside their bodies. Anyways, let's go. To look for Western Nefarious Sangha, said Tang Xiu with a slight smile. Can you really not spare him? Golden Armored Zombie looked hesitant. Immortal Master, you don't see me as a zombie yet, you can do that to me. But why can't you give him a chance to forsake his evil ways and return to the right path? I'm sure that if he faces the choice between death or submitting, he will definitely choose the latter. Tang Xiu squinted his eyes and said with indifference, Judging from Western Nefarious Sangha's character, I'm afraid that it won't be so easy to make him submit. Even if he does choose to submit, it would be nothing but a temporary retreat, and it will be highly likely that he will betray me in the future. Thus, the best choice I can think of is to weed out the roots and stamp out the source of trouble. Immortal Master, Western Nefarious Sangha actually has small courage. Though he often does shameless things, if you show him absolute strength or methods to destroy his trump cards, I'm sure he won't dare to betray you. He's a timid man? Tang Xiu's face was strange as he looked at golden-armored zombie in surprise. He could tell that this zombie did not seem to be lying to him. "We'll see," replied Tang Xiu lightly and went straight back to the car. The two SUVs then quickly drove toward the Western Nefarious Sangha's nest. From here to the destination was still a dozen miles away, and because there was no road ahead, Mo Au stayed behind to guard the cars while Tang Xiu led light and dark flying toward the destination with golden-armored zombie. Longquan Swamp. It was a quiet place in the deep valley surrounded by mountains on the four sides. The lowest elevation of the four peaks was about 500 to 600 meters high, whereas the highest mountain peak was nearly a kilometer, and Western Nefarious Sangha's immortal abode was located exactly on the mountain pathway halfway to the highest peak. When the four people landed on the flat ground in front of the entrance of his immortal abode, Tang Xiu sighed. "This is really a good place to seclude yourself from the world. There's also a spiritual vein here that's simply a blessed land for cultivators." Golden-armored zombie then whispered, "I have never been inside. Western Nefarious Sangha is a very cautious man, and he usually meets me here outside. He once told me that he has set up layers of traps in his immortal abode, and said that my chance to survive would be not more than 30% if I were to rashly intrude inside." Tang Xiu pricked his brows up. He flicked his arms and released the Bloodguzzler dagger and bombarded it onto the leafy wooden door. As the sawdust splashed and scattered around, he had already stepped into the cave's door. "Destroy." Tang Xiu took 2 lightning symbols and 2 raging flame symbols at the same time, and the spell flashed through the passage in front. Inside the 100 meters long passage, all sorts of traps were completely ruined and an extremely simple defensive array was shattered, creating a loud noise. "Who are you?" At the depths of the hundreds of meters cave, there was a space at the size of a regular football field with various carved stones and statues standing erect. Under the illumination of various lights, the place was so imaginary and illusory that it felt like a dream. A small stream ran through the space of the cave and flowed through it, unknown where its destination was. "Interesting. He's even using generators to generate electricity here." Tang Xiu cast a glance toward the inside of Western Nefarious Sangha's cave. And his eyes then moved to the scenery illuminated by the lanterns inside the cave. When he saw the ground about 10 meters deep below, he actually found 12 beautifully carved stone statues, making his eyes instantly squint. Using these stone statues to lay out an array, and the method used is much more profound than the defensive array outside. The might it possesses seems to be much bigger as well. Well, this Western Nefarious Sangha does have some abilities, eh? Tang Xiu secretly thought to himself. Western Nefarious Sangha took the lying magic wand and bolted toward Tang Xiu and the others like a sharp sword. After he clearly saw them, his face drastically changed. He glared at golden-armored zombie and shouted, "Did you bring them here? Are you betraying me? You should have heard the saying that one must bow their heads under the eaves, right, Western Nefarious Sangha?" Tang Xiu smiled. Golden-armored zombie didn't want to die, so he told me everything I wanted to know. Of course, he also paid a price, like that aerolite essence he gave me. "Who the hell are you?" growled Western Nefarious Sangha. "Who I am is not important. But the fact that you have discovered some of my secrets is what is important." "So, you must die," said Tang Xiu. When Western Nefarious Sangha thought better about it, he then realized as to what secrets Tang Xiu was mentioning. Tang Xiu's personal strength was very strong, and it seemed that Light who followed behind him was not weak either. They were able to defeat golden-armored zombie, thus they were highly likely to be able to do the same to him. Though he had a deadly trump card, yet it was hard to say who would live or die. "I'll give you the aerolite essence and I'll swear to keep your secrets in the dark, but all the grievances between us will be written off." How about it? It seems that golden-armored zombie was right. You're timid and cowardly. Tang Xiu shook his head. However, you're the Western nefarious Sangha, who would believe your vow or words, huh? In my eyes, only dead men tell no tales, then no secrets would be revealed for eternity. Just as Tang Xiu's voice faded away, light, donned in a white attire, had appeared in front of Western nefarious Sangha in an instant, and his flying sword was instantly brandished, as layers of sword images emerged out of thin air and enveloped the bald monk from every direction. Each of these sword images was full of a swift and sharp aura. Break. Western nefarious Sangha waved the magic wand in his hand down, and the wand's shadows created layers of black mist to billow out and strangle the sword images. At the same time, his other hand patted the sackcloth on his waist and suddenly, 2 balls of flames blazed out and then transformed into 2 bloodthirsty chiropterans the size of a northern goshawk. Whoosh whoosh. 2 bloodthirsty chiropterans swayed their wings as a sea of flames boiled the air.